Well, hey, everybody, this is Tanner Mulvihill over at Bayfield Home Loans, and I'm joined today by a real estate superstar and my friend, Dayla Brooks. Dayla, how are you today?
Good morning, Tanner. How are you?
I'm doing great. You know, I love talking about Kemp Woods, and primarily because it's my neighborhood. So I'm always invested and interested in knowing what's going on. And, you know, I was telling you offline that I drove around the neighborhood. For the residents out there that are making their houses look nice, great job, guys. I had my GoPro on, checking out the houses. It looks good, Dayla. It's really popping right now.
That's awesome. It's
Yeah.
that time of year to get them ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to talk about that. The first one we're going to bring up, we're going to talk about a sold property, and we don't really have any pictures to go into in detail on, but this was 1006 Sharondo. I butchered that last time too. Sharondo Court. And so Dayla, you know, tell me a bit about how long was this on the market? I see we went over list. Tell us about it.
So it went on the market and it was sold in 10 days. It was under contract in 10 days. And actually the buyer's agent that brought the buyer to the table is somebody that I used to work with at another company. And so I called him up and I said, hey, what's going on? So even before it closed, we knew the amount that it went over. So it was listed at 615, but then it closed at 622. So that's always a good sign for a neighborhood when you can go over that asking price.
For sure.
Yes.
Now, with your stats on the back end, do we know if they got any seller concessions? Like what for the folks out there? Because this one, if I remember correctly from our photos, I don't think this had a pool when we were looking at it. I know we got some coming up this summer that will.
No, I don't believe this one had a pool. And I don't have if they paid any seller concessions or not, but I would say by going over the amount, there's two ways you can look at this. I had a house go under contract this past week and we listed at 325. It's over in Portsmouth. And the buyer said, here's your offer of 335, but we want $14,000 back in closing costs.
Right.
And I'm like, your math ain't mathin'.
Right.
If you want 10,000, you can give us 10,000 over. We may give you 10,000 back, but we're not giving you more than that. So.
Right. And that may have been the case here. Maybe they ended up getting 7,000 in closing costs. They got basically their list price was 615 and we wouldn't really know. And, you know, unless we saw all the details of that part. But I think for me being in the neighborhood and knowing how much a pool is worth these days and this going that quickly without a pool in the neighborhood, that's a good sign for us.
It's a very good sign. And I will tell you, I talked with our compliance director at our company at OWN, and he said the contracts that he's seen in the last 90 days, 44% of them have gotten seller concessions.
Interesting. Okay.
So the market has shifted. The sellers don't have all of the power right now, but it's still a strong seller's market because of our lack of inventory. But the sellers are having to give up some things like the closing cost.
Yeah, it makes sense. Well, let's go to the next one that we have, and that's going to be a pending one. And for the folks that walk around the neighborhood, such as myself, I kind of feel this is maybe the most interesting house in the neighborhood from an architectural standpoint, and that's 1259 Smoky Mountain Trail. And I say that because it is not your cookie cutter one, and Kemp Woods isn't cookie cutter, so it's outside the cookie cutter range of Kemp Woods even. And just when we looked at this pictures before, this needed some work, but tell us about how quickly this went under contract.
So it just went on the market on April 11th. So 4/11. So then it's under contract on 4/14. So 3 days is all it took on the market. Now it was a little bit underpriced. It's priced under its assessment value, but it hasn't had a lot of updates, meaning we still have some mirrors, we still have some wallpaper, you know, those type of things. So that's a given, but who knows? Because it went off the market in 3 days, there may have been a bidding war. It may come out that they got above that asking price, which would be really great for the neighborhood.
For sure, and especially this being a Rambler with the frog over the top, it looks like which is I have a Rambler as well with the frog, so this will kind of be a comp, and hopefully this kind of creeps up towards that 600 mark. But again, I don't think this one had a pool as well. So for the folks that are out there considering listing, tell me about the impact of a pool in the spring when you're working with clients.
I love to sell in the spring with a pool because then you have all summer that the buyer is looking forward to it. Now,
Yeah.
there are a few people that are anxious about a pool if they have small children. And then we just go over, you can put these fences around it. You can put these safety alarms, those type of things. But it can be a plus or a minus depending on who that buyer is. On the house that we just talked about, Tanner, it was 3,000 square feet with 4 bedrooms and 3 full baths.
It's a
So
big house for
it's a
that
big
size.
house. It just is going to, when you have a house that large and you have to do some updates, it's going to take some nickels to get all
Yeah.
that done. But a great house. And I hope that we find it comes in over the asking price to help the neighborhood.
Yeah, I do as well. So let's kind of wrap up for the folks. A couple things. Let's talk about first. Maybe give us an overview of what you're seeing for sellers, because that's primarily our audience that is watching this. I know you had a number that went under contract this past week, not necessarily in the Kemp Woods price point. So talk about what you're seeing, kind of maybe lower end Kemp Woods, and then maybe the upper end. Like, I don't know if those are sitting for a year or what's going on.
Well, I will tell you, the lower end doesn't have a lot for the buyers to choose from. So when something comes on and they qualify for it, they're jumping on it, and those are selling in 2 or 3 days because of lack of inventory. When we get up into the higher end, now in Kemp Woods, they only had one, but there were other houses in that price point to pick from. So the
Okay.
more money you have to spend, and if you're qualified to 800,000 and you buy a 500,000, you've got a larger range. Whereas the
Right.
buyer that can only afford 300,000, they can only do that.
Slim
So
pickings, right? It's a pretty big drop off from 200 to 300 as far as like livability of
absolutely,
the house, I guess I would say.
absolutely. And the house that just went under contract, the next step is the home inspection.
Hmm.
And this past week, I had a buyer's agent who sent me a list, get this, 58 items that they want the seller to fix.
That's a lot. That's a high
Yeah.
end. What give the folks an idea? What's an average on a equilibrium market? It's not, it's not buyers are winning the bonanzas or sellers are getting 100,000 over list. Kind of an equilibrium market right now. What's an average when you see?
So I would say 5 to 10 items would be a lot. 3
Okay.
to 5 items would be normal. And you don't want it to be something like caulk the bathtub.
Right.
That's a homeowner thing. And this list of 58 items had replace the deadbolt. I'm sorry, when you buy a house, you need to go in and replace the locks as a safety feature because you don't know if the dog walker, the house cleaner, or whoever has a key. So you're
Right.
going to do that, but that's a DIY. That's on the homeowner. So don't ask the seller to do anything that's cosmetic or anything that's maintenance for the homeowner to do, if that makes sense.
It does. And then that's kind of one of the advantages of working with you when you're listing your house, is because you're protecting the seller. Somebody gives you a list of 58. This is getting whittled down. If not, we're just going to be moving on to the next buyer. And especially in Kemp Woods, we've just seen this, the one that sold went for over list in 10 days. And then the one that we just talked about went under contract in 3. So the good news for most of my neighbors in Kemp Woods, who do a great job of keeping the neighborhood just looking great, you're not going
Absolutely.
to have that problem. So
And most sellers, before they put their house on the market, they want to put their best foot forward. And so
right.
you're not going to have a lot of that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Well, cool. Well, Dayla, always a pleasure chatting with you. If anybody's out there considering getting their house ready to list, I say it every month, but you need to reach out to my friend Dayla so you can make sure you get top dollar and that you can go ahead and have a great real estate experience. Dayla, as always, thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Take care, Tanner.